How's it going, dudes? This compilation is brought to you by the United States Postal Service, USPS. It'll get there when it gets there. Enjoy! Travel back with me to 1966 to play a fantastic little title known as What Shall I Be? The exciting game of career girls. This game sees players compete to be the first to become a career girl by collecting the right school, subject, and personality cards to land their dream job. And the jobs on display here are only the most premier in female employment opportunities, like teacher, nurse, actress, ballet dancer, model, and airline hostess. Well, there's all the girl jobs. Go on, take your pick. These obviously didn't age well, but never fear. I'm here to make everything worse. Each job comes with its own school that you will need to go to in order to qualify for it. But they couldn't exactly figure out what people do in order to become models, so F it, send them to the charm school, I guess. In addition to that, you are going to need to have the right personality for your job. But you can not only get positive personality traits like being pretty, strong, or emotional, you can also get negative personality traits like being a slow thinker, clumsy, or overweight. Our final edition, What Do You Meme? Career Series, Real Estate Agents. Huh? Oh, sorry, I misspoke. Wow! New from the What Do You Meme career series, it's Real Estate Agents, full of that wacky and relatable real estate humor. When the potential buyer points out a small stain on the carpet, I hate it when that happens. When the client thinks their collection of deer heads will sell the house, classic gaffe. When the half bath is just a floating toilet in the basement, I mean, we've all been there, right, girlfriends? This is the worst one yet. This is where we are now? We're trying to corner the lucrative real estate humor market? Might as well slap the viral on TikTok sticker on this bad boy. We got a home run right here, ladies and gentlemen. To absolutely everyone's surprise, this one is one of the worst performing editions, being the lowest selling one on the Amazon page besides the TikTok edition. You know, the one that was discontinued?
It's The Price is Right!
The Price is Right is simultaneously a great and awful concept for a board game, as the structure of competing to get through price-based challenges to win the most prizes is a fantastic idea that has resulted in some pretty good PIR video games. However, all of the games for the show were designed with just the show in mind, so transferring them over to a board game version is going to result in some crunching. Classics like Master Key and Shell Game are going to lose their main appeal, and games like Freeze Frame, Punch-a-Bunch, and Hole-in-One, or 2, are just completely absent from the project. But some of the games can be shrinked down to miniature versions and still work great, carrying all the appeal of the originals, like Dice Game, Cliffhangers, and Plinko. Oh, you want to play Plinko? Here's your precious Plinko now. Look at it and weep. Ugh, I need a palate cleanser. At least I can spin the big wheel to get my spirits up. This is unacceptable. The other games I've shown at least have the excuse of being old. Everything I've shown you here is from the 2004 version. Let's get a little more recent by jumping up to 2005, and a little card game with a very subtle title known as Pimp the Backhanding. Pimp the Backhanding is a standalone card game where players, quote, mack some hoes and put them to work as you attempt to make the most money over 3 rounds. This is done over 3 phases in each round, which I will now try to explain without using any language that could trigger the age censors. Phase 1, the macking phase. Use your employers to attempt to recruit freelancers to your turf. There are only so many potential employees available though, so you'll have to out-recruit your opponents. If you fail this stage though, you can still get back at them in Phase 2, the backhanding phase. You can now hamper your opponent's completely legitimate business by hampering your opponent's businesswomen. Any laborers that have been dissuaded are unable to make money, so you can use your managers to defend them. Once all the actions have been carried out, the final phase begins. Phase 3, the money laundering phase. Your workforce is now free to carry out the operation, and you can now count the money you made and add it to your score before starting the next round. All throughout the game, you are able to use modifiers or dirty trick cards to affect your score, adding more to the game's strategy element. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is quite the specimen, as it was definitely designed to trigger a negative response from audiences based on this statement included with the rules, but at the same time, it is very easy to tell that a lot of effort and care went into the development of the rules, art direction, and game balance. This is WWB, or World's Worst Board Game, which ironically didn't win the worst board game of all time tournaments. It was knocked out of the second round because nobody likes a bragger. This 2011 title sees players attempt to advance up numbered cards from 1 to 100 and be the first one to the finish card to be the winner. The game aims to be as awful an experience as possible, featuring gameplay features like making you write all the numbers on the card yourself, rolling dice to move, and that is all you can do in this game. This would be tedious to get through if not for the mechanic that I'm talking about, which instead makes the game borderline impossible: the reset roll. See, on the die you are given, you are supposed to write the number 5 on one of the sides. Every other side remains blank. Then you roll to start. If you don't roll a 5, nothing happens and it's the other player's turn. If you do roll a 5, then you get to roll the die again. And if you roll a second 5 in a row, you get to move one space forward. Awesome! Other player's turn, no 5. Your turn, no 5. Their turn, no 5. Your turn, wow, a 5! You get to roll the second die again. Fantastic! Roll it. Oh, no 5. That's okay though, what happens now? Well, if you roll the second die and it's not a 5, you immediately go back to the start of the game. Huh? Yep, no matter where you are on the board, any roll on that second die that isn't a 5 will immediately start your game over, making this game not only incredibly frustrating, but downright impossible for any mortal without superhuman luck. 3 separate computer simulations have been run in order to try to finish this game, the first of which reaching space 13 after only 28 billion turns, before the entire simulation crashed. The second reaching space 14 in 786 billion turns before the entire computer crashed and corrupted the save file. The final simulation made it the furthest, as player 1 managed to hit space 17 on just turn 35,409,637,192,659. Can you guess why the game stopped this time? This one mechanic somehow makes the game reasonably impossible to finish during a single human lifespan. So in terms of functionality, I don't think it gets much worse than that. This is Winch, the drinking man's thinking game, also known as a nightmare for me to censor all these pictures so I don't get my channel assassinated. The Winch deck comes with 52 cards depicting women in various provocative poses and states of undress, and functions in 2 ways, for regular card play and for playing Winch itself. See, each of the Winch cards comes with traditional poker symbols, meaning that these cards can easily be used as a proper deck for any traditional card game whenever the need would arise. Hey, I'm hankering for some hold'em. Anybody got any cards? No! The real meat from these cards comes in the form of the game of Winch itself, which functions as a more complex form of Uno where players compete to get rid of all their cards first. The gold and blue cards each have different functions, and every card carries its own effect that will either assist in getting rid of your cards, aid in adding cards to your opponent's hands, or establishing penalties in an attempt to trip up the other players. A major part of Winch is these passive penalties established by the cards, as the more rules that are added and subtracted by the cards, the more difficult the game is to keep track of. Whoever has the most points at the end of the games loses, and is declared the Winch of the evening, and must pay whatever punishment was agreed upon at the beginning of the sessions, which could be anything. Do 50 push-ups, pay for pizza for everyone, power wash the deck, commit an international incident, whatever the group is feeling at the time, really. Obviously, the main selling point for the game is the classy artwork, which was put together by some guy named Monty Michael Moore, who has also done work for a couple small enterprises like Magic the Gathering, DC Comics, and Lucasfilm, Winch obviously going to the top of that resume. say. Welcome to 2019. Gas is a staggering $1.83 per gallon, and women are feeling oppressed now more than ever before. The socially conscious heroes over at Hasbro realized this and decided to release a game that would end sexism once and for all. Thus, Miss Monopoly was born. To call Miss Monopoly flawed would probably be the nicest thing ever said about the title. It seems like almost every change it made to the original Monopoly formula ended up being a flop that just made the game worse. You can't buy railroads anymore. They're now ride shares that just move you around the board. The housing system is gone. You can only put one headquarters on each property, which also means all properties are now worth less. You can't sell a headquarters after you put it down. In fact, you can't even mortgage anything either. You can only sell a property back to the bank. It's not a last woman standing match anymore. The game ends when all properties are purchased, as each person collects one more round of rent, counts their money, and whoever has the most wins. Please stop, I can only lose so much interest. Amazingly, none of these mechanics are the one I'm focusing on, as at least they were made in an attempt to shake up the classic Monopoly formula to make the game easier and faster, and people could theoretically enjoy these new rules. The mechanic I'm talking about is one that ruins any desire to play the game from all parties, and coincidentally is the biggest selling point of the title: the wage gap. Miss Monopoly prides itself on being the very first game where women make more than men, and strong-arms this into happening through the wage gap mechanic. Women start the game off with $1,900, while male players only start with $1,500. In addition to that, when men pass go, they get the standard $200, but women instead collect $240 on each pass. This makes Miss Monopoly the only game, at least that I can think of, that purposefully starts players at a disadvantaged state due to factors not only outside of the game, but outside of their control. Who is going to want to play this game? Men aren't going to want to, because why would they play a game that puts them at a distinct disadvantage when they could just play regular Monopoly? That leaves you with only the female crowd, which if you're playing with only women, then the mechanic is pointless because everybody's making the same amount of money, and they're not gonna want to play it either. Hey, you want to play this game where you get a handicap for the entire thing? Why do I get a handicap? Because you're a woman. You're gonna need it if you want to keep up with those boys. What? No, screw off. I'm just gonna beat them on equal footing at regular Monopoly.
Raider!
This mechanic does not appeal to either side of the coin, so you might think, well, just play without it, where everyone makes the same amount. And while that sounds nice, this mechanic was the main selling point of the game. It's so crucial to the game's identity that they made it the tagline on the front of the box. And if you take it out, all you're left with is a worse version of regular Monopoly. So just play regular Monopoly! Upmanship is a very game that sees players try to collect $100,000 the fastest through methods like stock trading, property acquisition and development, and other big business words. The game has received a less than favorable rating online, as people describe it as horribly unbalanced, a slog to get through, the whole 8.5 yards. But credit where credit is due, the stock system that Upmanship uses to determine the value of your investments is actually pretty cool, and with more polish and balance, could be a fantastic mechanic that keeps players coming back. Unfortunately, the same cannot be said for what I'm talking about here, which might well be the single worst board game mechanic ever put to print: the bitter pills, or as I like to call it, the loser's reset. Here's how I understand it. When one player reaches the $100,000 threshold, they win the game, but you might not like that person very much and decide that you really don't want them to win. So instead, you can take a bitter pill, which will take all of your assets, stocks, money, everything, and put you back to zero at the start of the board. And it does the exact same thing to the person who just won, resetting their progress, negating the win, and resuming the game from there. There is no limit to the amount of times this can be done. What this means in practice is that the game will not end until everybody agrees that it should, and no amount of skillful play will net you a win, since one of the other players can always just go "nuh-uh-uh" and send you back to zero every time you do. An exciting ending is thereby impossible with the title unless everybody agrees that the loser's reset is off the table, a playstyle that is highly recommended if you have anyone in the group with allergies. See, info on the game is scarce, so I don't know if this was fixed in a later edition, if they made those, but allegedly in the first published edition, the bitter pills came with no nutritional information or ingredient list, so what you were ingesting here was a complete mystery. This could cause some issues with people with allergies, as there is no way to know whether or not the pills would cause a harmful reaction, and there's no way to figure it out either. In the creator's infamous blog post comparing being given a nasty negative review by the Dice Tower to something not even close to that, he states that there is a PDF download of the rules available on the website, as he hopes that the instructions are clear as to the tactical value of the bitter pills. So, after firing up the Wayback Machine to visit a website that went defunct in 2021, those aren't there. All that's there is the game's cheat sheet, which contains one line about the bitter pills being a last resort, and nothing else. So I am no closer to figuring out whether my poor, sickly child will have to go to the hospital because he didn't want Joshy to win the game. Ladies and gentlemen, Hammerhead Enterprises. Longtime fans of the channel are well acquainted with Hammerhead, as these are the goobers behind everybody's favorite board game brothers, Public Assistance and Capital Punishment. Both of our brothers here carry some great themes to break out at Family Game Night, with Public Assistance being the anti-welfare game made to protest the Carter administration's welfare policies, and Capital Punishment being a pro-death penalty game where the aim is to get all of your criminals sent to death row. Drop these babies off at the family Christmas and sit back and watch the fireworks. Since I've covered both games before, I'll keep this segment brief and focus on the main difference between the two. That being that Capital Punishment is actually a really good game with a controversial theme holding it back, and its older brother, Public Assistance, is just abysmal. Capital Punishment's gameplay is an excellent combination of risk-reward decisions that will test a player's resolve as they attempt to move throughout the board without getting caught, while Public Assistance is an unbalanced mess that relies on luck for the entire experience. Neither of them lasted long in the retail space before being removed from stores for being too controversial. No idea where they got that from. As these games both relied on the shock of their themes to drive their message home, they come with some pretty funny nonsense due to the extreme nature of the situations they present. At the same time, both games also contain really disturbing portions that are guaranteed to ruin the fun of the night as well, so you take the ebbs with the flows. I want a series of games that is not only baffling for how bad the theming is, but equally as confounding when you look at how it's meant to be played. Luckily for you, I have just the company we're looking for, with a small company that specialized in goober activities throughout all of their games, Diplomat Sales Co. I can't find anything on these guys. No year they formed, no year they went out of business, no company records. They sort of just materialized without warning one day. The only things left behind by Diplomat were the 3 games that populated their library, and I think there is no better place to start than by covering their most iconic title first. Diplomat's very first release was a title that many a fan of this channel are already well aware of, the 1969 classic Adultery. Yes, the same game that ravaged the worst of all time tournament is not an only child, having 2 secret younger siblings that follow in their brother's footsteps. But before we get to those, let's take a deeper look into the original title and see what made it so special. Adultery is a party game meant for groups where the object of the game is to spend a good time with 2 different players of the opposite sex. The game takes place over 2 phases. In the first phase, players will each spin the spinner, and where the spinner lands will determine what time token they will get. Each player spins 3 times, collects their tokens, and then places their names into their respective gender's hat. That is when the completely neutral third-party referee, who was apparently here the whole time, starts the second phase. The ref will take 1 name from the male player's hat and 1 name from the female player's hat, and those 2 are now tasked to go to a designated private part of the house where they will now participate in actual real-world adultery until their combined time is over. Mind you, while the actual real-world adultery is occurring in the other room, there is literally nothing for the other players to do. They have to just sit around like, so, come here often? So, now that you know how to play, don't! This is the single best example you can provide for a game that was made for nobody. The general public is not going to want to play this game due to the literal crime being mentioned as the game's main draw. No thanks, I'm more of a wire fraud guy. So that leaves this game up to people of the swinger variety, except no, it really doesn't. Now granted, I've never been to one of these get-togethers, but I can't imagine that a series of rules and timers being strictly enforced by a neutral third party while all but 2 participants are forced to refrain from any activities until it is their turn are what these people are going for. If it is though, buddy, you are $40 plus shipping away from heaven. Get moving. Our final takeaway from this thing is to keep in mind that the amount of people that have caught an STD due to playing a board game is most certainly greater than 0, so thanks a lot, you trailblazer. But as mentioned before, adultery is not alone, as 2 other titles were also released under the Diplomat banner. Let's look at the other release from 1969 as Diplomat unveils their new take on a timeless classic, Strip Tac Toe. Does anybody else feel underwhelmed? Yeah, after the absolute behemoth of the last release, a naughty version of Tic-Tac-Toe doesn't quite carry the same punch to the jaw. Some definitive middle child syndrome here. But that doesn't mean it isn't interesting, because when you see that Diplomat sticker, you know this thing is going to have some serious nonsense garbage going on. The game can be played either 1v1 or with even teams, with the box directly stating that up to 16 people can play total. Players line up on each side and light the candle. Please don't put the candle on the sheet, that is a completely different game called Arson. To play, you remove an article of clothing and place it down to mark a square, then your opponent does the same. Play continues until one player gets 3 in a row or a draw occurs. Hey, wait a second, they totally ripped off Connect 4. If you win a round, you get to take a bonus card, which will carry 1 bonus action. But the real benefit is that you get to place that bonus card on a square in lieu of one of your articles next round. Clothing cannot be reused once it has been placed down, and once a player has no clothing left to place, they are declared the loser. The player or team with clothes left is the winner and gets to blow out the candle to signify the game's end. Picture painting time. Someone, somewhere, at some point in time has gone up to their friends and asked, "Hey, do you want to play Strip Tac Toe?" with a straight face, and as much as I hate to be mean to the guy, but they are definitely not friends anymore. So, with 2 of our terrible triple covered, let's head now to the youngest of the 3, being developed in 1970 right before Diplomat vanished off the face of the earth. Our final game is another original creation by the player's choice, Bumps and Grinds. This title more than lives up to the Diplomat name, joining Mr. Bacon's big adventure in the distinguished hall of games that can kill their players, now looking for new members. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. A quick look at the board will tell us what we're dealing with here, and I swear it's not Monopoly. Bumps and Grinds is much simpler, as players maneuver their way around the board while attempting to lose all of their clothing in the process. Yes, I said there. Contrary to the last game, the winner of Bumps and Grinds is the person who loses all of their clothing first, which opens up a whole new level of strategy for anybody looking to win at Bumps and Grinds. You move around the board by rolling the dice and advancing to different spaces, each carrying their own effects. These can range from free spaces to making a certain player strip to moving around the board, or the most interesting option of drawing a card. There are 2 decks possible to draw from, and the cards carry a diverse pool of effects like expected options of forcing other players to drink or lose articles, sending you to the bar, the jail equivalent here, and covering up safe spaces, or more wacky options like tell a joke, do a no, and the false modesty card, which can be used in place of removing an article, an action, may I remind you, that will negatively impact your chances of winning the game. All in all, yes, some goober activity, but nothing quite the level of adultery. At least that would be the case if not for one component that I have specifically left out until now, the candle. See, just like in Strip Tac Toe, the winner of the game gets to blow out the candle at the end, but this candle is special in 2 major ways that honestly make it one of the worst game components of all time. See, the rules specifically state that the game can only be played by candlelight, and with the candle this small, I highly doubt that you are going to be illuminating this board well enough for everyone to see clearly from all sides. In fact, this rule is so stupid, the two people on the front of the box aren't even obeying it, because just behind this sensor bar, you can very clearly see an active fireplace raging. The only way this candle is lighting up anything is if you put it right on the board, a detail that people who have been paying attention to the board will know as they specifically highlight a place where the candle must rest. Now, let me remind you what this candle looks like. A straight up stick with no restraints placed on this dinky little dish. So your open flame, which is your only source of light, is resting only on its wax structural integrity on top of a highly flammable board, on top of highly flammable carpet, next to highly flammable clothes, which are spread out everywhere. Brother, this thing is going to burn your house down. Membership accepted. The only other noteworthy part of this one is that many copies actually appear to be made by a company called Tac Toe, and not Diplomat. So what gives? Well, it appears that the Diplomat Sales Co. wanted to distance themselves from the whole adultery thing, so they decided to switch up their branding and become Tac Co. instead. I am confident that these two are the same, due to the fact that during their swap, Tac Co. used not only the same font, but the same background for their logo. In addition to that, there are copies of this game in the wild with the original Diplomat logo on it, so I'd say it's pretty safe to assume what happened here. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the Rap Rat.
Busted! Y'all ready?
He's in a shopping center now, showing you how. Having fun is the aim. Hey, Rap Rat's the name, the video board game.
Rap rat!
For kids who just want to have fun, so turn on your set, slide in the cassette and play.
Rap rat!
It's VHS, it's A-OK, it's kids' entertainment that's here to stay, the video board game.
Rap rat!
So get mellow, get yellow, get the video board game, Rap Rat. He ain't no ghost, he's the most. The video board game, Rap Rat.
I mean, it's over. It's all downhill from here. So, we've got a lot to unpack and a lot of questions to answer. First question, what am I looking at here? This is the video board game Rap Rat, the 1992 game that sees you try to collect the pieces for and assemble your cheese jigsaw puzzle before you run out of time. The game itself is extremely simple. Just roll the die, and if you roll the right color, you collect one of your pieces to add to your puzzle. That's it. If that was the whole game, we'd be done. We'd be fine. But the game comes with a VHS tape, and on that tape is the real meat of the game, as that is where the creature lives, the Rap Rat.
I'm the rat with raz and all that pizzazz. I'm plastic and fantastic. I'm your very own rat. Yeah! Rat.
This cryptid is the host of the show and our game master, determining the flow of the game and acting as the timer. See, Rap Rat here lives in a wall of cheese, and if you are unable to finish your puzzle by the time he eats all the cheese on screen, you lose the game. That is, if you ever get to the actual game, because after a minute-long intro of whatever this is...
There are gnomes in your garden, and they play slides on pink electric guitars. Ha! And cats can talk. They just don't want to.
Rap Rat comes onto the screen and just spouts nonsense for nearly 4 straight minutes.
Oh yeah! Now I could be wrong, but I don't think I heard your song. So let's do it once more, and I'll give you a score. Everybody smile, please, and say cheese. Cheese. Oh yeah! Right.
After our gracious host has finished introductions, we can begin the game. Rap Rat informs us that the oldest player will go first in Game 1. At least that's what you're supposed to gauge from whatever this demon is saying here.
Now hands up the oldest, cause you are the boldest. What's your name?
Finally, we start the game. Roll the die and then pass it on to the next player and try to collect and assemble your puzzle as the time runs down. As the cheese is eaten, Rap Rat will occasionally butt in to interrupt the game. And based on whoever had the die when he appeared on screen, he will bestow a penalty to that player. These penalties are all over the place. They can be simple stuff like missing a turn or returning a puzzle piece, but then this vermin will sometimes freestyle on this crap and get creative with his punishments. Stop playing and act like a chicken for 20 seconds. Stop playing and put your hands on your head for a full minute, which is 10% of the entire game. Miss an amount of turns equal to your age, or return every single piece of your puzzle. This last one is especially devastating because it happens with 30 seconds left in the round. You just lose. He just says you lose. Why can he do this?
If he asks you to do something, you must do it, because he's Rap Rat and he's the boss.
After you lose, this cretin comes out and gloats for a straight minute before letting you know that you can either stop the tape now or proceed to the next game in the most horrifying way possible.
If you're tired of losing and taking a bruising, just press stop, and rewind. And I'm on my way, and we'll find time to play another day. But if you want another lashing of rap bashing, ooh, that's smashing, cause I'm gate crashing that arty rap party. I'll just count to 5, but if I'm still around and alive, it will be time to jive. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is game 3.
And that is the video board game Rap Rat. At least the board game portion. See, our main villain of this experience has garnered quite the online reputation, featuring his own villain wiki page, and for good reason. See, the Rap Rat has run into some online controversy due to an expose creepypasta that highlighted that the darn thing is haunted by the entity Apparat, which is the real name of the Rap Rat. Which...
That was a big hello. Now it's welcome to my show. So at ease, please, and smile, and everybody say cheese.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. This game is absolutely abysmal. All you do in the game is roll a single die over and over, puzzle pieces come at random and dreadfully slow, and the entire time you are being harassed by a sociopathic rhyming rodent whose occupations are listed as video board game host and demon. If I were to host another worst of all time tournament, the video board game Rap Rat is taking a #1 seed easy. It is not often that you run into a game that is haunted bad. I'm going to read the front of our next game's box word for word and let you guys try to figure out why it's here. Ready? The game where you become a Jewish mother. Get your sons to become doctors. Get your daughters married to doctors. If not, oy vey. I'm surprised this one didn't take off. What am I looking at here? Look at the box! Look at the board! What do you want me to say? Oh, ages 12 and up, a perfect gift for the kids. I'd honestly love to go more in-depth about the game, but there is surprisingly little information online about a 1979 board game called Oy Vey. So what I'm looking at here is pretty much all I have to offer until I can acquire a copy for myself. Penguin breaking ice. What the heck does that even mean? Is the penguin the one breaking the ice? Wait, this is the same penguin from before. And hold on, why does the spinner have so many more spaces than the other ones? Skipper! What the ever-loving crap is going on here? Making Penguin stand firmly, he's doing the exact opposite. They couldn't have picked a stock image where the kids are having fun? This kid looks miserable. The product details list 3 different titles for the game, and none of them are the one on the box. It is very safety and healthy to children. I mean, I've gotta believe them. Would low resolution private ever lie to me? What is this thing? Why can I buy it at Walmart, and why is it sold out? Everybody give a rousing round of nothing for Fatal! The 2002 pen and paper RPG is widely regarded as possibly the worst tabletop RPG of all time. But I won't handle the introductions today, instead I'll let the game's theme song do that for me.
Fatal is the best role-playing game that there could be. Legacy adventure to adult luxury.
This is gonna be a good one. What is there to say about Fatal that I can actually say on this platform? Not a lot, there's not a lot. I'm dancing in a minefield here. To start off, let's just see what the back of the box has to say about the game. Fatal is a role-playing game like no other. The largest game book ever printed, Fatal has over 150 occupations, 200 skills, and 500 spells. fantasy gamers have never seen this degree of historical and mythological accuracy, nor detail and realism. Okay, interesting. Complexity isn't always a good thing, but that's why people love North Africa so much. Let's see what the creators have to say about their game. Co-creator James Hausler described the game as highbrow, with complex philosophical themes, and that it was ahead of the curve. He also said that it was intended to revolutionize gaming, and had the potential to be a massive commercial success. This thing sounds awesome. Let's see what the reviewers had to say about the title. One of the most controversial games ever released. The Necronomicon of role-playing games. Designed by misogynistic human accidents. Heinous and despicable. You're in for a fun ride if you consider a fun ride to be hitting your sack with a tack hammer for about 4 hours. You'd think the authors are trying to make themselves look like they're prime candidates for institutionalization. Saying that this game should be burned is an insult to fire. That's a slight difference in opinion. Alright, no more beating around the bush. Fatal contains the largest amount of disgusting, depraved, and downright despicable mechanics that have ever had the displeasure to be written in a readable language. I will now flash for exactly 1 frame some of the stuff in this game that I am unable to talk about. Do not pause to read it, as it will genuinely ruin your day. Now that the horrible stuff has been covered, let's instead go to the funny stuff to lighten up the mood. Yeah! Fatal is beyond complex, featuring a slim total of 900 pages of rules to be read through. Awesome, I'll get right on that. Within this bile-filled PNG are mechanics that dwarf all the other ones I've covered so far. Some shocking, some broken, some genuinely confounding, all of them bad. Let's take a look at some of them, shall we? A deep and intricate character creator system. You have little to no choice over your character's anything, as it is all determined by dice rolls, which could take you well over 2 hours to complete analog. 20 different attributes for your character. None of them correlate, meaning that your average speech rate can actually end up higher than your maximum speech rate. Dozens of character traits to make your character unique. Again, no player choice is allowed, as dice rolls determine stuff like eye color, hairstyle, sexual orientation, not reading that, Gee-many freaking frosties. A detailed list of spells that can be cast to either help you or hurt your enemies. These include Greater Harm, Bestow Age, Force Fart, Bestow Ulcer? These people are lower than animals. A magical miscast system, where spells that go wrong could have unintended consequences. Hey, that actually sounds really cool. What are some of the effects? Oh, they're all horrible! They're all disgusting! Awesome, glad I got my hopes up for that. A widespread magical item list full of whimsical objects to be discovered. Let's have a look at one. Armor that turns the wearer into different ethnic stereotypes. Was any of this designed to be fun? Was fun ever even a part of the equation? Is there a single good mechanic in this entire game? There are definitely more mechanics that I left out. Trust me, they're way worse. Forget it. If you want a comprehensive review of the title with all of the nasty parts left in, I've linked the famous MacLennan Sartin review of the game, which is pretty much the definitive review of the title. Content warning for the entire everything. Signing off, I am Cam Sandwich. Thank you for watching, and have a fantastic day. A special thank you to my suppliers, staff, and chefs over at the deli. If you'd like to join the crew, you can take a look using the link in the description below.